They are the masters of disguise. Armed and dangerous, the fittest survivors, cunning code breakers, and sexual virtuosos. We start our tour of the weird with the Masters of Disguise. Some appear as other animals, some appear as objects, some hardly appear at all. Whether for camouflage, confusion, or copulation, these animals have one thing in common. They are transformers, adaptable and unique. Down under Australian waters, you'll find our first weird transformer, the frogfish. How and why has such a creature evolved? They can't swim well. They lack a swim bladder. They can't move well. Fins are poor substitutes for feet. Instead of chasing prey, they have become masters of the ambush. Firstly, it conceals its position. Frogfish have evolved to mimic less dangerous, more delicious animals. A sea urchin, a sponge, coral. It lures its prey by mimicking a potential meal. To its unsuspecting quarry, this could be a tiny fish or worm. The frogfish uses an appendage on its dorsal fin to entice curious and hungry passers-by. The frogfish keeps very still, waiting for the right moment. The shrimp vanishes in less than 1/100th of a second. Its method of attack is known as gape and suck. First, its jaw pops and drops, the gape. This creates a void of negative pressure. The water and everything near it rushes in, the suck. It's easy to see the gape and suck when the footage is slowed down. But the frogfish has its limits. It has no teeth, it must swallow its prey whole, or not at all. One big gulp can't catch this flounder. It's able to pull itself free. Animals can mimic not only each other, but also the ground they swim over. The flounder's thin body and camouflage scales helps it to look like part of the seabed. Once within range of its prey, it strikes with incredible speed. A shrimp would make a perfect meal. The flounder hides under a thin covering of sand, only its eyes peek out. When a flounder is born, its eyes are on either side of its body. But as it matures, one eye migrates to the other side, giving it the characteristic flat shape that allows it to hide so well. The shrimp senses danger, but it's too late. But But the flounder's movements don't go undetected. An osprey senses an easy meal. The flounder attempts to disguise itself again, but the sands are too sparse and the water too shallow. The predator becomes prey, and the cycle of life continues while other better disguised flounders live on. Bermuda, in the North Atlantic Ocean, 1,000 kilometers from the United States. Lurking somewhere here is our next weird creature. This is the sargassum fish. This 10-centimeter long hunter has evolved to mimic the sargassum algae that surrounds it. Its skin has the texture of seaweed. The white spots resemble tiny worms that are prey for the small fish, who have no clue they're being watched. If you look closely at the sargassum, you can see its meal struggling inside, but only for a moment. The next weird creature, and perhaps the most grotesque of all, is a parasitic crustacean called a tongue louse. It gradually devours its host's tongue. Then it attaches itself to the muscles on the remains of the fish's tongue stub and becomes its new tongue. It seems the fish can use this uninvited guest in place of its lost tongue. Humans have long tried to decipher the barks, croaks, squeals and chirps of the world's creatures. Although we have a lot to learn, we know that animals communicate in many ways. Dolphins on the hunt strategize with one another. They coordinate their movements with whistles and clicks. But what they don't say is just as important as what they do say. Dolphins synchronize their swimming with others to show they're on the same wavelength. They'll bully and they'll chase. When alarmed, dolphins will close ranks to show solidarity. And while some behavior may look playful, in certain contexts, it's downright rude. Head shaking, jaw snapping, and bubble blowing are ways in which a dolphin shows its annoyance and anger. Thousands of kilometers away in the Arctic, beluga whales swim gracefully in the frigid waters. Each adult beluga weighs 1,000 kilograms or more. Males can grow to over 5 meters long. They're highly social creatures. Beluga whales use a repertoire of high-pitched sounds to communicate with one another. Calves begin making noises within hours of being born. But all the whistling in the world won't do any good if the youngster finds himself beached. This pod of belugas has moved into shallow waters. It's summertime in the Arctic, time to molt. The baby has become separated from its mother and is stranded on the shore. He cries out for help, but there is nothing the pod can do. He broils under the hot sun, waiting for the tide to turn. Luckily, the tide surge sweeps in and sweeps the calf out. He's learnt an important lesson: to stay close to his mother. Penguins can't afford to become separated from their young. The chick's survival depends on it. Parents will dive down more than 240 meters to find fish for their chick. After a hard day's work, they return home to their islands around the Antarctic and try to find their offspring. This is no trivial matter. If the parent feeds the wrong chick, theirs may starve to death. Fortunately, they have a solution. A parent can zero in on the audio frequency of its chick's chirp above the din of the thousands of equally loud parents and their chicks. And the chicks can zero in on their parents' call as well. The need to mate and to raise the next generation is a fundamental instinct of the Earth's creatures. In this search for the world's weirdest creatures, nothing beats the sex lives of the coral and cuttlefish. Reproduction is a strange experience under the waves, and these creatures will fight for territory, fight for mates, change appearance, change gender, combine together or split apart, whatever it takes to get their chance. This is the sea hare. It gets its name due to the rabbit ear-shaped growths on its head. These floppy rhinophore tentacles are actually the creature's nose, which it uses to find food and mates. It floats gracefully through the water on its two wing flaps. It's toxic, which keeps most predators away. It dines on algae and seaweed, which is in plentiful supply. And when it's time to mate, it doesn't seek out just one willing participant. Sea hares are hermaphrodites. They contain both male and female sex organs. The first sea hare acts solely as a female and is mounted by a second sea hare who acts as a male to the first and a female to a third, and so on down the line, to the last hare who acts only as a male. A pregnant sea hare will lay strands of millions of eggs, anchored for safety to the kelp beds. In the Arctic, mating battles are taking place. Hooded seals swim under the ice sheets in search of food. The impatient males fight for the right to wait by the females, who become available after they have weaned their pups. Two males size each other up, and the contest begins, with the blowing of a nose balloon. They get their name from this hood-like bulb on the top of their heads. In the world of hooded seals, nothing is more manly than flailing around a hot pink balloon. The male seals can grow to almost 3 meters and weigh 400 kilograms. A lot of weight to move around, which uses a great deal of energy. If a bigger balloon can scare off a smaller male, that's a clever strategy. But these males are evenly matched, so the battle progresses to hitting, shoving, and chasing. The victor re-emerges to court the soon-to-be available female. His large balloon seems to impress her. He relaxes next to the female and her pup. Sexual competition is not always over who gets to be the father. With these flatworms, it can be about who gets to be the father and who gets to be the mother. Like the sea hare, flatworms have both male and female sex organs. But when it's time to mate, they have to decide who plays which role, and that they fight over. The two flatworms rear up, exposing their midsections. The jutting white nibs are the worm's penises, a double-barreled inseminator. Flatworm sex consists of the two attempting to jab each other with their pointed pair and inseminate each other, an act delicately referred to as penis fencing. But there's nothing delicate about it. Flatworms have been known to gouge holes in each other in battles lasting up to an hour. Producing offspring requires a lot of energy. The winning father can go out and about in the world without any further responsibility. The losing mother absorbs the winner's sperm. And will now work longer and harder to find food and stay alive. The father floats away. The mother crawls along looking for a meal, already the responsible one. These Suriname toads are finally breaking free from mum. Her offspring have developed from eggs into frogs underneath her skin, and now it's time for them to move on, leaving her a little cratered. They emerge from holes in her back. For the Argonaut octopus, love is a fleeting affair. The small male departs after mating with the larger female, but he leaves her a gift to remember him by. A detachable arm filled with sperm that can shake its jelly roll long after the male has gone. Creatures battle to survive, to mate, and to find their next meal, some using the weirdest of methods. The creatures of our oceans have evolved a staggering array of weaponry and tactics to snatch their prey in the blink of an eye. This siphon acts as a breathing tube and a warning. Emerging from the sediment is its owner, a 15-centimetre long toxic killer, the cone snail. There are some 40,000 different species of snails. The cone snail lives in the waters of Southeast Asia. This is the underwater version of a tank, with a hard spiral shell, flexible treads, and down in front, a cannon. It has eye stalks on either side, but it hunts primarily by scent using its siphon. The target is a nearby fish. The fish hides deeper under the rock rather than swimming away. It's a bad idea. It still has room to move. But inside its proboscis, the cone snail has a long-range weapon, a harpoon. Made from a modified tooth, the harpoon can be launched by a quick muscular contraction. Fish hunting snails are particularly dangerous. The venom is strong enough to kill a human. This harpoon is cocked and loaded. The target is within range, and the cone snail strikes. Within seconds, the fish is paralyzed, reeled back in, and swallowed. The cone snail returns under the sediment, its siphon peeking out, ready for the next victim. This next weird creature creates a stunning light display. But this is no attractive life form. It's a killer. What looks like flashing neon is light refracting off thousands of cilia. Tiny hair-like propellers along comb-like ridges that give the animals their name. Comb jellies. Although they look similar, these tiny creatures aren't jellyfish. Comb jellies don't grow stingers like jellyfish do, which doesn't mean that they're harmless. As is usually the case, appearances are deceiving. Comb jellies have other, weirder weapons. In their hunt for plankton, crustaceans, and each other, some comb jellies like this burrowii have evolved a simple approach: a big mouth and a bigger appetite. It has no brain or specialized senses, only a primitive neural net around the mouth that can detect chemical traces in the water. When it bumps into something edible, it simply opens wide, very wide. The burrowii closes its mouth, holding its prey in place with specialized hooks. Other comb jellies have a more complicated way of snatching up prey. Coating the tentacles are specialized adhesive cells that act like glue. Once trapped, prey are drawn into the gut and digested. Size is rarely an issue. Comb jellies attack tiny prey and snatch larger meals. The comb jelly snaps its tentacles at the green jellyfish, but it can't drag it in. The jellyfish counterattacks with its stinging tentacles. The jellyfish pulls free and escapes with its life. The comb jelly flickers through the ocean, unconcerned and ready for its next opportunity. Male narwhals can weigh nearly 1,800 kilograms, with bodies up to 5 meters long. But it's their tusks that make them weird among whales. The tusk is actually a single gigantic tooth that can reach 3 meters. Some scientists argue it acts as a kind of sensor. But it's the males who predominantly sport the tusks. If the tusks had a survival advantage, surely females would also have them. Some scientists believe this means the tusk serves the same function as a deer's antlers. It's a way to show who's the fittest male around. Occasionally, males come to blows using their tusks. Not surprisingly, this is known as tusking, a way of maintaining hierarchy within the group. These are sea cucumbers, and they're full of surprises. This hairy sea cucumber takes several hours to burrow under the sand. With its body now safely hidden, it's time to eat. It unfurls its feathery tentacles. Any microscopic morsel it finds gets pulled down into its mouth. A miniature forest of sea cucumbers filters the water clean of organic debris. But at the first sign of trouble, the forest vanishes to feed another time. It has no brain. Instead, a nerve ring around its mouth tells it when to move, when to fight, and when to eat. A fish nips at the rear of the sea cucumber. It's a bad decision. It expels its guts out of its very own ring of fire. Their filaments are sticky and toxic. If the fish gets caught, it might die. The fish wants no part of this fight and backs away. These baby loggerheads have no idea what awaits them in the ocean. But that doesn't stop them. From the moment they hatch, they head straight for waters they've never been in before, towards a destination they have never seen. They find their way to the water by sight, but once they are there, they can determine their route by sensing which way the waves are hitting. They are the only animal known to do this. And once they're out at sea, they can sense subtle differences in the Earth's magnetic field to determine exactly where they are, unless they get eaten first. Nudibranchs are sea slugs. They come in a variety of shapes, sizes and colors, and with strange powers. This nudibranch hovers near the water's surface. It has the ability to stay buoyant by gulping large amounts of air and floating like a balloon. It drifts towards its prey, the Portuguese man-of-war. The man-of-war is more than 50 times the size of a nudibranch, but this is not the mismatch it may seem. It nips away at the man-of-war's tentacles. They are covered in stinging nematocysts, capable of killing a small fish. But the nudibranch is immune. thanks to a thick layer of mucus coated around its mouth. While it gobbles tentacles, it also ingests some of the nematocyst's stingers. Whatever doesn't kill a nudibranch makes it stronger. It passes the stingers from its gut to underneath its skin and recycles them for its own defense. So when this filefish tries to take a bite out of the nudibranch, the fish gets a painful jolt and no meal. Sea otters are one of the few mammals to use weapons. Their favorite tools are rocks and babies. An otter can use a rock to force open a stubborn clam. It can also use a kidnapped baby to force its frantic mother to bring back food as a ransom for her pup. Some creatures lack weaponry, but make up for it with survival strategies. There are many ways to put up a defense. Fish with wings to scare away predators. Clams outmaneuvering the competition. Clownfish protected by toxic tentacles. All with one goal: to stay alive. In the jungles of Panama, basilisk lizards spend most of their time by the water's edge hunting for insects and fish. This one has found a good stalking spot. A butterfly flutters in range, lured by the smell of fallen fruit. The hungry basilisk watches intently, unaware that it too is being watched. The basilisk strikes. An easy catch. Tucks into its meal, unaware of the danger. A bushmaster viper awaits the chance to strike. Its fangs drip with lethal venom, and it has the advantage of surprise. The bushmaster has the basilisk cornered against the riverbank. It moves in for the kill. But the basilisk has a special skill. It can walk on water, an ability that has earned it the nickname the Jesus lizard. Its webbed feet slap against the surface of the water, creating an air pocket beneath that prevents it from entering the water before the next step lifts it out. It travels at an average speed of 5.5 kilometers per hour. Most basilisks get just 4.5 meters or so before sinking, but it's enough to reach safety. The bushmaster can only watch helplessly. The basilisk appears on the opposite side of the bank, hungry but still alive. In Japan, the toxic pufferfish is considered a delicacy, but it's a potentially lethal one. Their skin and liver contain tetrodotoxin, a lethal paralyzing agent. One bad slice of pufferfish sashimi can kill a grown man. Some pufferfish have prickly spikes that lay flat against their skin until they're alarmed. It gulps down water into its elastic stomach, bloating its body. To find out whether their defense works, we can take a look at a battle between a pufferfish and a moray eel. The eel strikes first, but the pufferfish enacts its defense. The eel can't maintain its grip, and the pufferfish lurches away. The pufferfish saved not only its own life, but the eel's as well. Had the eel managed to make a meal out of the toxic puffer, it would have been its last. This disc-shaped fish is a mola mola, an ocean sunfish. These fish have been known to grow to over 3 meters long and weigh 2,000 kilograms. It spends most of its time diving in the depths for its main prey, jellyfish. Jellyfish are more numerous than nutritious, so the sunfish spends most of its time feeding. But this mola mola is not hunting. It's come to the surface to deal with a bigger problem: parasites. Sunfish can be infested with some 40 different kinds of parasite, and to remove them, it seeks out kelp. These beds of floating kelp are home to the half-moonfish, who will gladly take care of the problem. But the mola mola have to wait a while for assistance. The fish float in line until it's their turn. Then they flop on their sides to be attended to. The cleaner fish are thorough, but some parasites are beyond even them, so the sunfish seeks out a specialist, a seagull. The gull hacks into the sunfish's flesh and snaps up the last remaining holdouts. Finally free of its uninvited guests, the sunfish can go back to feeding. But the sunfish has it easy. Compared to clams off the coast of New England. Clams have no brains, but they do have a foot that looks like a tongue. Along the shallow coastline of the Atlantic, these surf clams spend their days filter feeding for plankton. Some hide under the sand, only a siphon peeking out to feed. Staying under the sand is a good survival strategy. To counteract this, cow-nosed rays stir up the loose sand to expose the clams, then crush them with their powerful jaws. Other hunters, like this oyster catcher, have a different method to get to the tasty clam meal. They slice the muscles on this jackknife clam and pop open the shell. They don't have brains, but clams do have special photoreceptor cells. A sudden change in the light means something bigger and hungrier is above them. And when they sense danger, they dig in. The fastest clams can dig 2.5 centimeters per second. They may have no brains, but they're still able to outsmart the competition. The Pacific barrel eye is certainly among the world's weirdest creatures. It has evolved a fluid-filled see-through skull. This allows its large green eyes to see prey swimming above it. The two black pits in front that look like eyes are actually its nose. We have looked at weird lookalikes, weird behaviors, weird weapons, and weird sex lives. Now we enter the dark to find weirdness, creatures not often encountered by man. Like the blobfish, the fangtooth, and the viperfish. But one creature is odder than them all. It lives in total darkness, at depths of up to 1.6 kilometers below sea level, in what has been referred to as the Midnight Zone. Down here, it's wise to be afraid of the dark, but also of the light. The light is a lure, wielded by the deep-sea anglerfish. The lure is created by bioluminescent bacteria that live inside the angler. It drifts through the water, flashing its beacon, waiting for something to take the bait. This squid thinks it's found an easy meal, a fatal mistake. This squid was smaller than the angler, but had it been bigger, the anglerfish is prepared. To make the most of every opportunity, this anglerfish has evolved a distending jaw and an expandable stomach. Because this far down, meals are few and far between. This is a black devil angler, a female. She is after this fish. It's not a meal, it's her mate. His specialized scent organ locks in on the female. It's difficult to find food this deep. It's even more difficult to find a mate. Deep-sea anglerfish have extremely clingy relationships, never letting go. The male bites into the female's belly. His body releases an enzyme that dissolves the skin under the bite and fuses his mouth to her body. Then the two become one. He will draw sustenance from her for the rest of his life. In return, the female has a ready supply of sperm for whenever she's ready to mate. The deep-sea anglerfish is surely one of the oddest creatures known to man, deserving a place among the world's weirdest. To find the strangest creatures, we need only take a look at the most mysterious places on our planet, the oceans.